How fast can things change? Just take a look at our communication from 1 year ago. Hello again, everyone. I'm Eli's dad from Project Eli, where we educate, we lead, and we inspire. And I was reflecting upon certain phrases that have come into vogue because of the pandemic scenario that we currently are hopefully right near the end. And I've been reviewing some of these phrases and thinking to myself, you know, last year that phrase would have meant something completely different. Let me give you a couple of examples. First of all, how about community spread? All right? Community spread back then meant somebody was gossiping about somebody else. Or when somebody talked about transmission, that had to do mostly with your car, didn't it? Hey, how's your transmission? Or another one of my favorites, asymptomatic. You know, when I would hear the phrase asymptomatic, you know what come to mind would be somebody that is their entire people that they hung around with were simpletons. You know, he's asymptomatic. He hangs around with simps. Okay, I mean, these are phrases that, like, who even thought of these phrases over a year ago? I won't even go into a super spreader event. That brings me back to my college days. How about the bubble? Wow. You know, when somebody talked to you about the bubble, I would think about little kids blowing bubbles, or I would think about the NCAA basketball tournament. One team may get into the tournament, they may not get into the tournament. They're on the bubble. Well, right now, being in a bubble has a completely different meaning, as does Zoom. Wow. Zoom, when someone says, I'm going to, you know, bang, Zoom, all right? It was like, you know, how fast are you going to get there? Now, Zoom is the way that you communicate. Here's another one. You know, when people talk about essential business, you know, one of the things people would say is, hey, would you excuse me? I have to go perform some essential business. And that was the way they got up and they went to the restroom. Flattening the curve. Well, flattening the curve 2 years ago meant, boy, let's try and get rid of that beer belly. Today it has a completely different meaning, doesn't it? How about some acronyms? You know, the acronym PPE. That brings me back to when Eli was a puppy, and I would say to his mom, PPE? In other words, did Eli go PP? PPE, or personal protective equipment. That has a whole different meaning. That was kind of like your athletic supporter and more. How about this one? Really has me. How about efficacy? You know, when I thought about efficacy, I would think back to when I was in high school and they hang around with the, you know, the really tough kids, and they would be go effing this and effing that. I mean, they couldn't even get one whole word without effing this and effing that. I remember when somehow it came up in conversation, the M effing Pyre State Building couldn't even get through a whole word without the efficacy. Effing this, effing that, you know. And Eli, I'll bet about your age you're running into a lot of people that talk like that. You know what? Intelligent people don't talk like that. But I recognize the efficacy. And how about herd immunity? That's something that we're all striving to achieve, herd immunity. You know, I heard he had some immunity. You know, I heard the president gave him some immunity. Who knew what herd immunity was? Anyway, I always thought of myself as somebody that had a pretty good vocabulary, and a year or so later, I find that the meaning of the words that I used to say, or I would hear, I would used to think, has completely changed. So I hope you enjoyed this little humorous look at some of the vocabulary of a pandemic And please stick with it. Have the vigilance to stick with it. It's not going to be too much longer. Get your shot when you can. And let's never end a meeting on a philosophical note. So get out there and charge! I'm Eli's dad.